Good afternoon, everyone. We've got 4 agenda items, and our first one is Bert Hick, President of Rising Tide Consultants Limited. Please come up. Thank you for being here.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, members of council, staff, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be very brief. I put in a submission to you. I own a company called Rising Tide Consultants, and we do liquor licensing consulting throughout the province of British Columbia. And we assist people with various liquor license applications and changes to licenses. And my reason appearing before you today is to request the city direct their staff to review the policy of the City of Surrey respecting the hours of service of liquor for liquor primary license establishments, particularly as it pertains to hotels, establishments that have both a food primary license and liquor primary license, such as a golf course. In my submission that I put out to you, the current policy has the hours of liquor service starting at 11 a.m. for liquor primary license establishments, but yet one can apply for a food primary license where automatically it's granted by the province to start liquor service at 9 a.m. There's not a huge demand for liquor at 9 a.m., but it does help people with golf tournaments, hotels that might want to serve a champagne and orange juice reception, champagne start to a golf tournament. And within the City of Surrey, there's some grandfather licenses, such as Northview Golf and Country Club, that does commence liquor service and have the right to do so under the liquor primary license at 9 a.m. But other golf courses, such as Hazelmere, Morgan Creek, can't start serving liquor until 11 o'clock. Hotels and all golf courses and hotels have to be licensed with both a liquor primary and a food primary license. So the situation you get into in some of these cases where someone can go into the clubhouse, purchase a champagne and orange juice at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, or be given one as a hospitality welcome to a golf tournament, a fundraising golf tournament perhaps, and they can consume it in the food primary license, but you can't carry it out to the golf course, which is licensed under the liquor primary license. And for example, there's a brew pub just over here called Central City Brewing, which has both a food primary and liquor primary license. They can start serving liquor in their food primary license area at 9 a.m., but they can't start serving liquor in the liquor primary license area till 11. So it creates this disconnect. And so I'd like to suggest that staff take a look at that. We do a lot of work with golf courses throughout the province, and we are finding more and more golf courses are approaching municipalities to be able to serve liquor at 9 a.m. Again, it's not a huge demand, but for example, at Golden Eagles Golf Course out in Richmond, out in Pitt Meadows, I played in a golf tournament out there last year, and they started the golf tournament at 11 o'clock, but before then there was a champagne and orange juice welcoming breakfast, reception, and all that sort of thing. So I want to leave this with you and request your staff take a look at it.
Thank you very much. Do I have any questions from council? Seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation, and staff will take a look at the report. Our next delegation, Ellen Neimer, I hope I got your name right, Neimer, and Amanda Liu from the Surrey Blue Dot Movement.
It is Neimer.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Hepner and councillors, for allowing us to present to you today. I'm Ellen Neimer, a resident of Surrey and team lead of the Surrey Blue Dot Movement. In June of last year, I became a member of the first Blue Dot team in Canada, which was formed in Richmond, where I work. Since then, the David Suzuki Foundation's Blue Dot Movement has spread across Canada. The people in the second row here are just a handful of the more than 1,000 Blue Dot supporters who live in Surrey who've signed the Blue Dot petition, either online or at local events. Why Blue Dot? From space, our planet looks like a tiny blue dot, a blue dot that's home to an amazing diversity of life. In Surrey, we're blessed with an abundance of natural beauty, from the shores of the Fraser River to Crescent Beach, from redwood trees to rich agricultural farmland. The Blue Dot Movement is about protecting the people and places we love for our children and our grandchildren, so they'll have a healthy, sustainable future. More than 110 countries around the world have enshrined the right to a healthy environment within their constitutions. And although Canadians enjoy many rights, that is not one of them. The right to a healthy environment is simple. It guarantees its citizens the right to fresh air, clean water, and healthy food, the necessities of life. The City of Richmond was the first municipality in Canada to pass such a declaration in October 2014. Since June of this year, when we presented to the ESAC, 15 more Canadian municipalities have also passed declarations, bringing the total to 73. That's more than 6.7 million Canadians who now live in communities where their right to fresh air, clean water, and healthy food is recognized and protected. I was privileged to meet David Suzuki during my initial Blue Dot training. He shared his dream with us to change the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms to include the right to a healthy environment. When polled, 85% of Canadians feel that this should be one of our basic rights. Yet the Conference Board of Canada rated our country 15th out of 17 nations for standards on air pollution, climate change, water, and other environmental factors. The World Health Organization reports that more than 36,000 Canadians die premature deaths each year as the result of exposure to environmental hazards. How can we change this discrepancy between Canadians' beliefs and our environmental standards? We can start right here at the municipal level by passing our own declaration in Surrey. Changing the Charter is a lofty goal that will require further work at the provincial and federal levels. But dreams have to start somewhere. And today, British Columbia is leading the way with more than 35 municipalities who have passed declarations. What's truly inspiring about the Blue Dot movement is that people of all ages are working together to make this dream a reality, including students like my co-presenter, Amanda Liu. At 15, Amanda is a dedicated core member of our Blue Dot team, and she would like to share with you why Blue Dot is important to her.
As a young member in the community, I just have to say that I, and along with countless other young individuals, really do care about the environment. The first time I was ever told about environmental issues was in the first grade by my teacher, Mrs. Miller. And she was an amazing woman, and she was actually the person who first told me about David Suzuki. Now, it did take me a while to actually realize that the situation is urgent. And eventually it did dawn on me that change is going to happen, that the world around me is going to change, no doubt. And the places that I love and the places I haven't even had the chance to been to yet are going to change. And it's possible that the changes won't always be good. And that's why the Blue Dot is really important to me, because I feel as though it's trying to make a change that can really make a difference and can really ensure the safety of our environment. And it's honestly asking for so little, but it can do so much. And as more time passes, we're getting a stronger sense of responsibility towards our environment. And of course, as people, we may forget. We may opt to drive rather than take transit or walk. And we may take a shower that's maybe 15 minutes too long after a long day. But I think we can all agree on one thing, is that we do care, and that we do believe that the environment is worth protecting, and it is worth the time, and it is worth the effort. And we all want the environment to stay healthy for years and years to come. And this job of protecting the environment is something that belongs to all of us. And it's because we all live on this beautiful planet, and we all need our beautiful, small, and tiny Blue Dot, because it's the only one that we have. Simply put, we need to protect it. And I really do feel hopeful for Surrey, because I was born here, and I've been living here for almost my entire life. And I've seen the amazing progress that Surrey has made. And recognizing the right to live in a healthy environment in Surrey is just going to add another step to Surrey's amazing journey that we've already taken. And honestly, Surrey is not just a city. Surrey is the place where we've made connections and we've built relationships. And it's also the place where we've made amazing memories with our family and friends. And Surrey is simply our home. And protecting the environment is protecting the people we love and we care about. And that's why the Blue Dot movement really matters to me.
Thank you, Amanda.
According to figures from the City of Surrey, our city is projected to grow by 300,000 people within the next 30 years. By 2046, it's estimated that 1 in 4 people in the lower mainland Metro Vancouver area will live here in Surrey. As you know, Surrey adopted the Sustainability Charter in 2008 that created a 50-year vision for a sustainable future in Surrey. Adopting a declaration for the right to a healthy environment will provide a high-level, non-binding framework that complements the Sustainability Charter, providing an overarching vision to guarantee our citizens the right to fresh air, clean water, and healthy food. Besides Richmond, Vancouver, North Vancouver, Burnaby, New Westminster, Port Coquitlam, and Port Moody have all passed their own declarations. And since our presentation at the ESAC meeting, West Vancouver also passed a declaration last week. The City of Richmond has also put forth a resolution for the UBCM in September calling on the BC government to enact a provincial environmental Bill of Rights. Given the growth projected for Surrey and the increasing effects of climate change, now is the time to stand up for the environment and for the health of the people of Surrey. We may not be the first to arrive at the dance. We might actually be the 74th, but that doesn't mean that we can't take the lead. On behalf of the Surrey Blue Dot movement, our supporters, and the people of Surrey, I ask you to pass a declaration ensuring the right to a healthy environment to protect the people and places we all love in Surrey. As our city slogan says, the future lives here. The only kind of future worth living is a healthy one. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. Do we have any questions? Yes, Councillor Chartrand.
Thank you. I just want to say that I had the pleasure of listening to this this presentation last month in our ESAC meeting, and I have to make the same comment as I did back then with Amanda. I mean, you lay claim to being in Surrey all of your life, where my shoelaces have been here longer than you have, and I'm very proud of the way you present yourself. And it's my hope that we can also support a resolution that includes the items that Surrey's already gained within our sustainability charter and the other things that we have, our achievements, so that we're not just talking about signing up, because I have been online looking at the Blue Dot information that's been there till the point where that's all I could see was blue dots in front of my eyes. And I have to say that what you guys have is wonderful, but I think that we will be able to produce something like that, but at the same time blow the horn of Surrey in what we've been doing for a number of years.
Thank you. Councillor Villeneuve.
Thank you. I was really impressed with your presentations as well. I'm wondering, is the organization, after it declares many resolutions from cities, intending to take stands on issues that members of the public feel are important for example, healthy food? And one thing I will say, there's a large debate, and we're all learning more about the GMO foods, etc. So is the organization's mandate to do those kinds of things, or is it basically just to develop a resolution that people need to be taking better steps towards preserving the environment?
I think that as far as the David Suzuki Foundation goes, their ultimate goal is to change the Charter of Rights to include the right to a healthy environment. There are so many separate Blue Dot organizations across Canada, and each one kind of has their own ideas of what they want to do with it. So it's very open as to what we do. After we pass the right to a healthy environment, our goal is to keep our group together and to get more members. And we're hoping, we do have a retired school teacher as one of our members. We have some wonderful students here. And we would like to take the Blue Dot message into the school. And I understand there is a curriculum being developed through David Suzuki, but we see more education and more involvement in environmental issues in Surrey.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a great idea, because I remember a quote from David Suzuki, if you don't expose young people under 19 to nature, that they will never care about it in their lives. So That's a
Right.
really important endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Mayor Hepner?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation today. Councillor Villadube did ask the question that I was interested in, and that was sort of what are the next steps in terms of the Blue Dot organization here in Surrey. I was pleased to see that you acknowledge the work that we have done relative to our sustainability charter, and some significant work as well in the arena of food security and preserving our food lands as the breadbasket, quite frankly, for the Lower Mainland here. I'm wondering, as someone who sits on the Premier's Leadership Council for Climate Change and the alternatives, looking forward to what are the next steps there, whether you have done any work on some of the issues around climate change, and if you have some particular initiatives in mind, or is it more broad-based in terms of a healthy environment in total, whether it's water or air?
I think at this point it's very broad-based, and like I said, I was part of the first Blue Dot group that was formed in Canada, so I think we're kind of learning as we go. I know that the David Suzuki Foundation themselves are very much interested in climate change, and it could very well be that that's one of the issues that we take on. I know there's several things here. There's the coal port construction. There's a lot of things that affect us here.
Well, in fact, there's even just something as simple and but as significant as the dikes, and we've invested more than $30 million in repairing dikes just in order to preserve ag land here in the city. So there are all of those initiatives, and I think our sustainability charter goes a long way in partnering with what your broad vision is. Yes. For the Blue Dot organization. Do you have a particular declaration in mind, or is it the statement that you made at the beginning relative to just passing an ordinance that says we support the Blue Dot organization and the message that it's delivering about a healthy environment?
I know that we did submit a couple of samples in our information package. The declarations so far are very simple because it is quite high level, because you have done a lot of work already. So this is, like I said, just kind of an overarching framework. But there are samples that have been submitted. Some municipalities, I understand, have added things that made it more personal to their municipality. Some people have added more things to it. Some people have just kept it the very simple wording. So,
thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor LaFranc?
Thank you. I'd like to congratulate you on your presentation. It was great, and it's such a lofty goal. I know how difficult it is from past witnessing to change the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Right. So congratulations on a lofty goal. It would be interesting to see, and maybe you could shed some light on how what that plan is over the long term. So it sounds like you're starting locally and then moving sort of more broadly.
Yes, the plan is to start right at the grassroots level at the municipal level, get municipalities to pass their own declarations, then to work up to the provincial level, which we understand there will be some discussion of that at the UBCM. Once we get 7 provinces with 50% of the population, then they can make a charter challenge. Of course, it's also going to depend on the results of the next federal election, if there's a way, they can approach the federal government, if the federal government is more approachable. So I think for the David Suzuki Foundation right now, it's a little bit of wait and see and kind of see how the political winds blow. But yeah, it is a very lofty goal.
Thank you. I don't think city has been referred to as grassroots for a very long time, so thank you for that.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. It was very, very informative, and we will be asking staff to bring back a report. Thank you. And actually, our next presentation is our Sustainability Manager, Anna Matheson. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm happy to be here this afternoon to present the 2014 sustainability trends. So I'll update you on how we're performing across the range of indicators. We have 77 measures that we have on our sustainability dashboard. I'll share some staff insights on why we're observing certain trends and challenges and strengths under each of the pillars. And it's all background for corporate report R151 that's going to regular council public hearing tonight. In that corporate report, or attached to the corporate report, is the full 2014 annual report, but I'll do a summary of it right now. The Sustainability Charter, it was referenced in the prior presentation from 2008, directed that we develop sustainability indicators and targets to monitor our progress. So in 2009, you'll recall that we set a community-based task force which worked over about a year and a half to develop a suite of 80 sustainability indicators, of which most of them had targets. 50 of the 80 had a target attached. And there was a lot of staff input as well. It was a very iterative process that was brought to Council in late 2010. We then did some work to develop the web presentation, the visualization tool, which is our sustainability dashboard, and we launched that a little over 3 years ago. So the dashboard really looks at those broad outcomes ahead to the 50-year vision of sustainability. So it's very much looking at community outcomes and those types of indicators. And it has inspired similar dashboards and work in Salt Lake City and soon to come in Phoenix as well. Thought worth a mention. So when we developed the dashboard, we did a Made in Surrey dashboard, taking an innovative approach, and it does link with Cosmos, our online GIS system. We grouped it into the 3 pillars of sustainability, but also over 12 themes, a little more intuitive to look at the 12 themes. And there are now 77 measures. We've had some small edits over time, but we have 77 measures across those 12 themes that we continue to monitor. You'll note that only 26 are within city controls, and when we were developing that initial list, there's quite a few that are not necessarily within city control, but were deemed, critical to measuring those broad outcomes within the community. This is just a screenshot to show you again what it looks like. There's the themes on the left. You pick an indicator from a drop-down menu in the middle, and then the trend shows up on the right side. The data has always been available for people to download, and then last year we made efforts to link the sustainability indicators data with our open data system. So they're a little more available now, a little easier to use. So what have we found after 3 years of the dashboard being out there? We've seen moderate traffic and usage. So a sample month from earlier this year, we had a little over 500 users. And in that particular month, sample again, we had 65% of unique visits were from within Canada, and a little over half of those were within the city of Surrey. We've made efforts to align and integrate the indicators and targets into things like our 5-year financial plan and in other key city plans and strategies, the OCP being one, biodiversity conservation being another. And we are finding that the indicators are useful to monitor those broad trends and inform whether our efforts are making a difference. And we're definitely learning along the way which measures are good. I mentioned we had 80 at the beginning. We've done some tweaks that are referenced in the annual report, some tweaks for 2014. And I'll comment as we move along about some other learnings. So every year we use that dashboard to provide Council and the community with an update, that full annual report that's going to Council this evening. And for 2014, of the 77 measures, 50 I mentioned earlier have a target attached. So of that 50, 36 are on target or stable. We're off target for 10, 4 of which are within city control. And where we have no target, there's 27 of those, but I did want to comment that, and you'll see in a moment, but even though we have no target, we can still identify a trend for most of those. And we have 4 measures where we have insufficient data. So some of the success stories, on the economic pillar, around density on transit corridors, we have a target for increasing over time, wanting to see an upwards trend, and we're definitely seeing that, particularly in city centre and along Fraser Highway. And then we had a measure for transit stop accessibility. We actually exceeded our short-term target last year. So through the transportation staff, they've now set more ambitious targets, short-term to 2030 and long-term to 2058. So we're on target with both those measures. A couple of challenges on the economic side. The vacancy rate is an example where we have no target, but we can clearly see a trend. We see increasing commercial vacancy rates, and that's mainly the result of major tenant relocations and a lag time in leasing some of those spaces. But we also know that those spaces that are close to rapid transit have a lower vacancy rate, which builds support for LRT. Under food and farming, we are off target on the measure that looks at how close people live to a farmer's market. We look at a 20-minute bike ride, kind of 6-kilometer ride to a farmer's market, and you can see it's pretty variable. In 2014, there was the one market operating in city centre, the Surrey Urban Farmers Market. In other years, there's been markets that operated, but they didn't last year. So this is a measure that, as staff are reevaluating, it was meant to be a measure of food security in the community, and because it's variable, it may not really be telling us all that much. Moving to the environmental pillar, two success stories. One is clearly around waste diversion. So we've reached our short-term waste diversion target of 70%. And on water consumption, we've seen a steady decrease, and we're almost at our 2028 target. So that's one that maybe by next year, maybe the year after, we'll reevaluate the targets and possibly set some new ones. A couple of the challenges on the environmental side. We have a greenhouse gas emissions target corporately to reduce 20% by 2020. We're off target on the city fleet side. We did see a dip to 2013, but it bumped up last year. That was within our fleet. We had additional equipment and vehicles. And then within our contracted fleet, that's mainly the vendor for the curbside residential pickup. So they had more customers, and they had a lot more organic waste that was picked up in 2014, which bumped up the fuel use. But we do have some new compressed natural gas vehicles that will replace diesel trucks, and long-term we're on track to meet that emissions reduction target through the biofuel facility that's being built. Ecosystems, looking at environmental programming, that's another one where we don't have a target, and it's variable. It was really meant as a measure to get at environmental engagement among the community, and it's one, you can see it's variable depending on the programs that are being offered in a given year, so staff will reevaluate that one to see if we can find a better measure possibly. Wrapping up with the socio-cultural pillar, we are on target with the high school graduation rate. So the graduation rate in Surrey continues to climb. It's almost 89% in 2014. And looking at cultural space provided by the city, big bump in 2014 with the addition of this space at Centre Stage and the South Surrey Recreation and Arts Centre expansion. So we're very much on target. The target's to see an upward trend. A couple of the challenges. Facilities that offer city programs. We wanted to see a gradual upward trend on that one, and we're off target, and it's particularly related to school space, but that's also an example of where the indicators-driven change. We used this information for a recent meeting with the school district and identified that the schools, while they're not providing space necessarily for city programs, they're offering a lot of their own programming. So this is a measure that may not be capturing kind of the net positive benefit to the community. And we also recognize that some of our facilities like Guildford have had an increase in size. They'd only count as one facility here, but they've increased in size and being able to offer more programs, so it's one that we'll reevaluate. Square footage might be a better measure. Participation in youth cultural events. These are for events that are supported by the city and the Youth Arts Council of Surrey. It's on target, so, but it's highlighted as a challenge. It's one that we'll reevaluate. Sometimes the youth leaders decide to focus on smaller, more impactful events. And if we want to get at youth engagement, again, we might find a better measure. So these are part of some of the conversations we're having. So when we look at the indicators where we're off target, there's really a couple of reasons. One is that we need to focus action to improve our performance, and the example I gave about the city fleet is one. And another is that some of the measures really aren't necessarily getting at the outcomes we originally were looking at. And the farmers market's an example of that. So as part of the Sustainability Charter update that's ongoing, we'll look at those indicators and some of those targets. So the full annual report goes to Council this evening. We'd post it online and share it as we normally do and update the dashboard with that 2014 data. We'll have the updated Sustainability Charter coming by the end of this year, and then we'd update the dashboard accordingly with new themes, new indicators and targets that emerge, improve the dashboard and make it a mobile website. So that's one of our projects for next year. And that's the end of the presentation. I'm happy to answer questions from Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
Councillor Villeneuve.
I just have a comment and I read through the report, and I think it's terrific because I think it sums up so well what the city has done over the year.
Yeah.
And for people to access that report, I think they would be stunned to know how much the city has done and the efforts that we've made towards sustainability on so many different levels. But it's very nice to have all of the work in one document.
Right.
And I think it's one of the best documents I've seen this year, so congratulations on that.
Thank you. I should also acknowledge there's a lot of staff, through the chair to Councillor Villeneuve, there's a lot of staff effort that went into that. It's not only the collection of the data for the update, but the preparation of that whole report, just to acknowledge that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Hepner.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, thanks, Anna. It's a really wonderful report, and I'm always happy to see that we measure on the stool, on all of the elements of the stool that make a city sustainable. When we're talking about the farmers market, I'm glad you're looking at another measure, because quite frankly, we have so many farm gate sales even. And I know when I'm visiting farms, it's not necessarily a farmers market that I'm going to, but there are lots of other opportunities to get very fresh produce that is directly from our farming community. So I'm glad you're looking at another measure there. I think that's important to reflect more appropriately that there are opportunities outside. Farmers markets are great for urban centres that don't live in an area that are surrounded by as many fabulous farm gate opportunities as I think our city offers. So, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor LaFranc.
Thank you. What a great presentation. Thank you, Anna. I wanted to just say how impressed I am at how holistic this sustainability charter is. It looks at so many different aspects of our life in Surrey, and I just think it's an outstanding document. I also, as a beneficiary of all the extra square footage in Guildford, think that it really is a great idea to turn to different measures, because it's really hard to tell that we've seen increases and we've spent a lot of money, and it's important to be able to reflect that in the sustainability charter. So thank you very much, and I look forward to your year-end report. I was also very happy to see that we are lowering our water consumption. That's getting more and more important. It was really great to see a downward trend. So thank you again, and thank you to all the people who contributed.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you to all your staff and all the hard work that you've put into this, and thank you for presenting it to us
Thank
today.
you. Thank you very much, Mayor.
And our last delegation is Don Loomis. He's going to provide us an update on West Clayton NCP. Thank you, Don.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Mayor, Councillors. It's with great pleasure that Jeff Arison, the Manager of Utilities, and I will make this brief presentation on behalf of a much larger interdepartmental staff team on the completion of the West Clayton NCP, which is presented for final approval by Council at tonight's regular meeting. Staff has worked with Community Advisory Committee, Citizen Advisory Committee over 3+ years, along with many additional meetings with stakeholders and landowners, 4 large public meetings, the last of which was held on June 18 of this year to arrive at a final plan. Stage 1 of this NCP was approved by Council in late 2013, and since that time staff and our consultants have been working to make refinements to the land use plan, but particularly to develop the engineering servicing strategy and the financial strategy and policies to support the implementation of that land use plan. The plan is built on a number of key planning objectives. In a nutshell, I've summarized them in these 6 bullet points, but in a nutshell, really, one of the key objectives was to develop a heart for the West Clayton neighbourhood that would also serve as the heart for the East Clayton neighbourhood, just to the east. This heart, a village centre, includes a future recreation, cultural centre, library, a major park, and a local shopping area. A second objective was to develop transit-oriented and walkable neighbourhoods. Neighbourhoods where kids could walk to school, where it's easy to cycle, where traffic is well distributed, and where densities are sufficient to support the increase in transit service and to support the future light rail transit system along Fraser Highway. And the third key objective was to create a green space network connecting to the larger context of the agricultural land reserve and some significant green areas and biodiversity conservation networks in adjacent areas outside of this NCP. So this is the land use plan that we're bringing forward. And I'll just point out a couple of salient points using my mouse here, if I can get it on the screen. Here we go. Excellent. So the first is this heart that I talked about. It would be developed around the corner of 72nd Avenue and 188, and a site has been selected for a future recreation and cultural center and library that would feed into this heart that joins West Clayton and East Clayton. And is adjacent to a major park, Clayton Park, that this plan adds significant land to. So the existing Clayton Park is enlarged quite significantly. A second salient point is a future light rail rapid transit station at the corner of 184th and Fraser Highway, and the light rail system along Fraser Highway itself. And you can see that there are higher densities of apartments and mixed-use shops and residences supporting this major investment in transit. The third salient point is kind of a density gradient, and you can see it from southeast to northwest, that as we move further and further away from transit-oriented areas and the village center, the densities in this NCP drop. And they drop in relation to a higher proportion of green space and natural areas as we approach the agricultural land reserve edge along the northwest and north sides of this NCP. And the fourth salient point is the green network. I'll have a slide later that just isolates the green network, but there are two real significant parks in this NCP that serve not just West Clayton, but also East Clayton. The first, as I mentioned, is Clayton Park, and the second is a proposed park that is adjacent to the existing Clayton Elementary School and adjacent to the Agricultural Land Reserve. It's land that's sloping towards the ALR, providing great views over the farmland, bracketed by two Class A watercourses with fisheries habitat, and this will be a real gem in the city's park system in the future. These parks and others are joined by a system of greenways and green corridors that link the parks, allowing people to walk between them and also for the passage of wildlife. And then finally, there are neighborhood parks in each quadrant of the neighborhood so that kids and families can walk to a local neighborhood park without crossing any busy streets. The land uses in the NCP include a range of housing types, most of which are ground-oriented. What we mean by that is where you open your front door and you're right out onto the ground or the street in either a single-family or a townhouse form. And so what I'm circling here, you can see that the acreage is devoted to this family-style, family-oriented housing comprises the bulk of the residential land uses on the plan. Another key feature of this plan is clustered residential uses, where it's a similar housing form to what I just mentioned, but these are on sites where there are significant tree retention opportunities or green space opportunities, and there's an exchange going on in these cluster designations where a portion of the land is set aside as public open space for tree protection and nature protection, and the density that is available on that property is clustered in a portion of the property. And you can see that the acreages devoted to this cluster form of development are quite significant in this NCP because it's an area with significant trees and natural landscapes that ought to be protected. Finally, the commercial land uses are a neighborhood commercial and then a higher density mixed-use commercial residential designation. But these commercial areas are intended to be local serving, not a destination shopping situation, more commercial services and shops to serve the community of West Clayton and the adjacent East Clayton. By isolating the public green space, you can see the framework that's created by a series of linear corridors linking the major parks, Clayton Park down here in the south, that park that I mentioned on the ALR edge, and you can see that there are green space and greenways and pathway connections linking these parks, And then you can also see that there are smaller neighborhood parks sprinkled throughout the neighborhood, providing local play opportunities and recreation opportunities right within neighborhoods. These greenways link to larger green reservoirs. There's a big area that where the city has been acquiring lands in a natural park just in North Clayton, as well as the Agricultural Land Reserve and the North Creek Ravine. In terms of heritage opportunities, we commissioned a heritage study and identified a number of assets. The one I'm going to highlight is the Clayton United Church, which is the home of the Surrey Little Theatre. It's on a very small parcel. It's a heritage registered building but is not currently protected. And this NCP includes policies that will ensure the protection of this building through the assembly and comprehensive developments of the properties adjacent to the Little Theatre. Another thing that marks this NCP is its attention to energy efficiency. It was identified as an energy shift neighborhood, or branded as such, a few years ago. And there's a fairly innovative policy included in this NCP where bonus density of approximately 10 to 15% is granted in exchange for building higher efficiency and healthier buildings. And that policy is summarized on this slide and in more detail in the corporate report and the NCP itself. Overall, at full build-out, which may be 10 or 15 years, we estimate that the land use plan will include about 6,200 homes, most family-oriented homes, housing about 15,000 new residents. Now, these numbers were taken into account in planning for parks, commercial areas, and particularly schools. Working with the school district staff, it's been identified that there's a need for 2 to 3 new elementary schools in this NCP and directly adjacent to this NCP, along with the expansion of an existing school, the Heritage Clayton Elementary School, which I'd mentioned earlier. In addition, there's need for 1 secondary school, and that property has already been acquired by the school district. Design is underway, and the opening day for this second secondary school in Clayton is anticipated to be 2017. So to ensure that the neighborhoods are walkable and cyclable, the plan calls for a fully connected network of on-street and off-street cycle routes, including on-street bike lanes on arterial and collector roads, as well as off-street multi-use pathways. And then in terms of walking, all local streets will have sidewalks both sides. Collector and arterials will have wider sidewalks both sides. And there's also that network of multi-use pathways that allows both walking and cycling. And it's a fully connected and integrated system leading to shopping, parks, and transit. In terms of transit, the area right now, as we all know, is not that well served by transit, but we expect that this will improve as the area develops. The South of Fraser transit plan, TransLink, calls for 72nd Avenue and 184th to be future transit routes. And as I mentioned earlier, the light rail system coming down Fraser Highway, a future station is located at 184th. So these circles here, the blue and the kind of greenish color, show areas of the NCP that are within 400 meters of a bus route, including that future extension, or within 800 meters of the future LRT stop. And this is another reason that the densities in this NCP are highest in the southern part where they support transit and are accessible to transit. In terms of the street network, as a fully integrated network of local streets in a modified grid pattern, along with, and this allows for the maximum of connectivity for walking and cycling and the distribution of local traffic. There's also a number of arterial and collector roads, chiefly 184th, which is an arterial road, as well as 72nd Avenue. Perhaps the most significant and difficult challenge in planning this NCP was the reconnection of 72nd Avenue to Fraser Highway, made necessary by the growth not only in Surrey, but also in Langley to the east. This is a traffic artery that's very important to regional movements. And we worked carefully with the local neighborhood to develop a strategy for both the shorter-term connection of 72nd to Fraser Highway, as well as protecting for a future connection at the base of the hill in the deeper future. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague Jeff, who's going to talk about the engineering servicing strategy.
Thank you, Don. As discussed, I'll be speaking through the sanitary, water, stormwater, utilities, and then the financial strategy. Right now, in terms of the existing sanitary sewer, there's relatively none, with only one development within the benefiting area, or in the NCP area, having sanitary sewer serviced by the city, with the remainder having on-site septic systems. As such, and with that, the existing system downstream of the West Clayton NCP area, or the area to the south, has limited capacity to support growth. So in terms of servicing, what we need to do is we need to establish a strong backbone. And what we're recommending is basically extending the North Cloverdale trunk sewer. That would be the sewer identified in yellow. And what this is, it serves as the backbone in which then the local sewers within the NCP area can then drain to. And as well, this sewer would be sized such that it can support future development within the North Clayton area in the future. In terms of off-site constraints, there's a number of downstream constraints to the south of the NCP area. What we're recommending first is that the city construct a diversion sewer referred to as the 180th Street sewer, as illustrated in yellow. And what this does is it conveys existing flows away from the North Cloverdale pump station, which is the asset identified in green. And this frees up some capacity within that station to support initial development of the NCP area. And as the NCP area develops, there's going to be subsequent improvements to both the pump station and then the works identified in blue to support the ultimate development of the NCP area. For water, there's a mix of, servicing within the NCP area now. Some properties are serviced by city water system, and others are serviced by existing wells on the property. And with that, in terms of our system, the existing elements of our network can be utilized to support some growth, but there are improvements that are needed to support the full development of the area. That includes extending a feeder main along 72nd Avenue, reconfiguring some of our pressure reducing valves, and then with those works in place, then we can construct the local distribution network to support growth within the area. And ultimately, as we near completion of the NCP area, there's a pump station, our existing Clayton Booster pump station in East Clayton, that will need some improvements. In terms of stormwater, the system is pretty much a natural system as we have it now. It's made up of roadside ditches and culverts, draining to high-valued fishery watercourses. We have a mix of Class A, B, and C watercourses. All these watercourses drain down into the floodplain and the serpentine lowlands for conveyance to the eventual conveyance to the Serpentine River or pumping through the Fry's Corner pump station at Fraser Highway and 176. And basically, this natural drainage system is insufficient to support growth. So what we need to support growth from a servicing side is what we're recommending is the construction of 2 detention ponds. And from those 2 detention ponds, an extension of a trunk and local sewer system to support development as the area develops. In addition to these works, we're also recommending a number of best management practices, with the primary one being the provision of enrich topsoil, like a thick medium of topsoil on all pervious areas, in order to promote infiltration and retention of stormwater. And looking at the costs of all these services, as illustrated, the development cost charges that are to be collected from the NCP area are sufficient to support the works needed for the water and transportation or roads components, but we do have a revenue shortfall on both the sanitary sewer and the stormwater or drainage components. With that, we have a couple of mechanisms available to address this shortfall. The first is that we establish what's referred to as an area-specific development cost charge. That meaning we adjust our citywide DCC rate to address that $13 million shortfall. This is an approach that the city has applied in many areas, such as Campbell Heights, the Highway 99 corridor, and Annydale-Tynehead. Or alternatively, we can leave the citywide DCC rates as they are, and then ask the development community to initiate what are called development works agreements. So these are processes in which the development community can put in place a charge to the benefiting area to address that shortfall. In reviewing the various options, what we've recommended is that an area-specific DCC be introduced to address the shortfall for both the sewer and water components. We see this as a simple approach, whereas with the DWA approach, there's a number of elements or projects that would be subject to a development works agreement, so that it's administratively onerous for both the development community and the city to administrate, and adjusting the area or introducing an area-specific DCC seems to be the clearest approach. With such a DCC in place, what we're recommending or suggesting is that the DCC rate for the West Clayton would approximately be about 10% higher than the existing citywide rate as it is now. Although 10% higher, it is significantly lower than the existing DCC rate for comparison that's available in Annydale Tynehead at this time. So at this point, what I'll do is I'll return it to Don Limes to conclude the present.
Thanks, Jeff. So in addition to the development cost charges, the city also has an established process for ensuring that community amenities are provided as the neighborhoods build out. And this community amenity contribution is chiefly for park development. So development cost charges go to purchasing parkland. The community amenity charge goes to develop that parkland with trails and trees and benches and such. And this, in this NCB, totals about $2,000 per dwelling unit, and this will generate just over $12.6 million for community amenities at full build-out. In addition, a small charge is levied to recover the cost of the various studies that benefit eventually this development. It's a small cost of $74 per unit. So the full report, the corporate report, as well as the lengthy NCP document is on the agenda for tonight's meeting and is available on the city's website. And with that, I thank you, and Jeff and I are available to answer any questions.
Councillor LaFranc.
Thank you so much. What a great presentation and an exciting NCP. I was very impressed by the energy efficiency bonus policy, and I'm just wondering if they use that in other jurisdictions or if this is unique to Surrey.
The particulars of it are unique to Surrey. There's one that I can think of where there's a similar circumstance in the city of North Vancouver. This is a bit different, but the model was kind of set there. And so the way it works is a developer is, if they've agreed, and we make sure that they follow through that on that agreement through restrictive covenants, etc., to hold future builders to a standard of creating a more efficient dwelling unit, they're granted additional density. It's not so much density that it changes the building form. They're still townhouses, for instance, but there are a few more units per acre that are on the table for developers who covenant to requiring that future building adheres to higher standards. So I think it's a little bit, the wrinkles of it are unique to Surrey, although I think that other municipalities are also dabbling in this because there's a great concern about energy efficiency and certainly protecting future residents from price increases for electricity and natural gas.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Villeneuve.
Thank you. I think it looks like a really interesting NCP with a lot of green space connection. I really like that about it. I guess Clayton draws to mind because we were all involved with the first sustainable project in the Clayton area that had the smaller homes and the more natural drainage and various things. But the challenge was transit didn't come. And so we then were dealing with the parking issue as people needed more cars. And now we also allow secondary suites. So we just want to ensure in this plan that the forms of housing or the space that we are going to appropriate for parking is going to help us with that challenge. So it's just a heads up because it looks wonderful on paper. But as it materializes and depending on how well the transit materializes.
Absolutely.
I think that's a driving issue.
And certainly I think we're a lot closer in time to excellent transit service on Fraser Highway.
I hope.
Touch wood. But certainly I think there is a recognition that transit is significant, and there's been significant improvements of bus transit on Fraser Highway already, and there's continuing improvements in the 502 and 503 bus routes, which are very well subscribed. The other thing, and it's thank you for reminding me, is there's been some adjustments to the zones that the kind of single-family housing that is being proposed in West Clayton is somewhat less dense than in East Clayton. The lots are a bit bigger. There's more parking available on site. As you know, Council is reluctant to approve coach houses at this point, and we haven't taken that into. We haven't included that in this NCP, and this NCP does have quite a bit more green space than East Clayton. That was always considered, because Clayton Park really does serve as the major green space for both East and West. And West Clayton will really open up Clayton Park, not just to residents of the new NCP, but also to existing residents in East Clayton.
Okay, thank you. It's very good.
Thank you for your presentation. It does sound like a wonderful plan. I do have a few concerns that maybe we can talk about that at another time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, may I call for an adjournment?
Second.
All in favor? Contrary? And that's carried.